Well, here we are yet again, diving into our books. We're going to flip through them, see what we underlined, see what we circled, see what stood out to us, what we thought we should reach back on, grab on, saying Kofa to help us move forward. See what, I guess when we leave the books, when other people look through our books, what we hope they see, what we hope they relate to, or see what we were relating to. Today we're diving into Africanthology, a perspective of Black Canadian poets, edited by my man, Gregory. How do you say that? Frankson. Gregory Frankson. Peace King. Diving right in. We're going to start off right at the beginning. Why? Because we got a wonderful thank you there when we got this book. To the Black Rose Nation, Holistic Sunshine Management, Baba Shabazz, Earth Tanya, and your stars. Let the words of our Black poets protect and empower the spirits of our children. Conway McCarthy. Peace, young king. Thank you very much for that. What have we got underlying in these books? Reading the introduction. Experiencing this book is not meant to be a passive action. The time for passivity in the face of challenge, examined by the anthology's contributions, demands more from you, immediately. This book is both a celebration and a warning. Showcase featuring all Black men. The voice of Black men are constantly being silenced. Black men could speak unapologetically and uncensored. Unapologetic. It's one of those words that come up and then you really gravitate towards it. It really stands out. Rubbed me the wrong way. Struck me as odd. How do you make the argument that the season for the show has passed? How does one come to that conclusion? How does one justify such a comment? Enough of being pigeonholed and boxed into realities that work for others at our own expense. Great poems. A lot of different poets enter contributions into this book. I encourage everybody to go out and buy this, read this, and make this one of the things that you quote to your children, point out to your children, or use as a parenting tool. A lot of jewels in here that really help with that. In New Brunswick, if you are a part of a visible minority, that fact adds more value and creates more opportunities, the mastery of your artistic practice, and an impressive portfolio of work. They like to expand, export, expropriate. What do you have? Is it culture vulture? They like to use your talents, your land, wealth, resource, your mind, and creativity. I mean, in New Brunswick, if you are part of the visible minority, that adds more value and creates more opportunities. There's a reason for that. In the Black community, our dollars, every dollar we make, 98% of that dollar immediately leaves our community and does not circulate through. So 98 cents of every dollar is going into those others' communities. So of course they're subsidizing you, encouraging you to go in there and use your strength, because not only are they getting their dollars, but they're also getting ours. And we are left living off 2%, 2 cents of every dollar. The social siege on your identity will be so unending that the very act of defending yourself will become the most visible trait of who you are. Someone who must fight to justify their existence in any space and for any reason. War. I pulled down alteration like lightning when I was angry. My ears are evolved to catch tone and rhythm. I chuckle internally when I encounter people established in the literary world who recoil in horror that some white public education knight didn't sit me down and teach me the proper ways to express who I am. It's odd to say it, but the Black artists here have had their passion for their creative career beaten out of them by the vicious kindness of the gatekeepers in this province. Speaking of New Brunswick, Canada. Always asking for BIPOC and never Black. Yet every other culture will have the respect to be named when the calls for their community culture workers go out. They will make space for black excellence, black artists, and black joy. If they do not bend to admit the whitewashed monoculture canvas that they have painted, then I will personally see to it that they are broken under the waves of shame and accountability as they forge an organization with the sole purpose of gathering and showcasing black creativity. I won't let them tell the black creative community to be here when we've been here and ignored for centuries. The diversity audit for all New Brunswick is in, and I judge them to be systematically lacking. Long live the New Brunswick Black Artists Alliance. Yay, yay, ashe. Back then, I didn't know how to speak out, only up. My volume was the only tool I had to tune my frustrations. Relate to that, don't we? You know, New Brunswick, the Maritimes, a lot of the times we're the one of only a few, outnumbered, outgunned. The, oh, I don't mean you, it's not that big of a deal. I feel you, young blood. Excuse me. Woo. Pardon me. Our world, as African diaspora people, was smashed to pieces in the Great Maafa. We can never go back to what was before. We will constantly be in a process of creating our world anew. A part of this, from my perspective, means renaming ourselves. Renaming ourselves is part of our liberation from mental slavery. It is time for black bodies to release the white man's name and shake the badge of dishonor from our shoulders. He was everything I wanted to be. I stood witness in the proverbial corner, on one hand gazing enviously at this boy who represented much of what I wished I could be but couldn't, and on the other hand watching him be punished for it. He was no longer a student at Second Public School. The school was happy. Now things go back to the norm of bloody fistfights at recess between hockey players and rated R level makeout sessions between the grade sixes, just steps away from the kindergarten playground. But so long as the kids engaged in these activities were white, reasonable justifications were found for their behavior, and understanding was heaped upon them in large amounts. The predominantly white world I live in was unsafe for me, and that my safety would rely upon how safe white folks felt around me. I became their trophy and their mascot, literally trotted out of rooms full of white people and public officials to prove how well they were doing at their jobs. I decided to lean all the way into the make white people feel safe thing. Why wouldn't I? After all, I was reaping rewards such as free tickets to watch my favorite basketball team, the Toronto Raptors. There were other benefits as well, like free admission to leadership camps and invitation to kinds of galas attended by politicians and other social influencers. I thought all this opportunity earned through my psychophancy. My psychophancy would one day lead me away from the hood, away from the police harassment, white supremacist gangs, and unjust treatment. How naive I was. Gatekeepers. I was consciously sacrificing the development of a healthy identity in exchange for a chance to escape my surroundings, make the white folks feel safe. My black classmates hated me for it, even if I kind of hated myself for it. Such was my level of desperation. As I got older, it became less and less amenable to me spiritually. Make the white people feel safe for my own benefit was actually harming me. Serious mental health challenges. If moving away from blackness meant to others that I was safe, capable, and credible, the message I was indirectly sending to anyone who might stereotype black folks was that black, in the truest of ways, was to be dangerous, incapable, and not credible. I did not want black folks to have to ignore racism and to diminish themselves as I had in order to get where I was. This is a question of safety, to effectively coexist, to learn to navigate differences successfully. I will no longer diminish myself to achieve a sense of safety, because if the cost of my identity, then what, if anything, have I really achieved for me, my people, or humanity? Preach. Canada has become a master in the art of historical camouflage. This incessant comparison contributed unfailingly to the minimalization of many issues of concern to a segment of the population, notably Indigenous and Black, which as soon as it started tackling issues related to civil rights, to exclusion and representativeness, was accused of importing ideologies and social dynamics from the USA that were not applicable in a Canadian context. It was true in the 19th century, and it is true today. The only difference between blacks in North America, South America, Central Africa, Haiti, Jamaica, was a boat stop. We were picked up and dropped off in many different places. Families broken off. Mom dropped off here. Aunt dropped off here. Cousin left back there. Nephew taken down there. These borders aren't ours. We are family globally. The only difference between us was a boat stop, or we were left back. We, Muhammad Ali, remember that. I remember going into a bank just to get some money and walking by the pamphlets, and they all had black faces on them. I just had to grab every one of them. That was a souvenir to me at that age. That's where I came up with this whole send us back thing, because it was just so funny to me. I'm like, white people haven't been giving us the best advice our whole lives, and we don't listen because they're saying it in the form of an insult. So they're actually tricking you. It's like, I'm going to insult you with this very good information so that you don't ever take it. Meanwhile, they be going to all these places to volunteer in Africa for 2 years, but then tell you, you don't want to go there. You'll get killed. It's a war-torn country. You'll get malaria. So when you go back, you be like, yo, why didn't I come here before? This advice was legit. It's freaking paradise. And I'm living in the cold tundra that sucks for 10 months out of the year. Why am I here? It makes no sense. It's insanity to me, and you're calling me crazy. I'm like, you try for another 400 years to convince them to like you. I'd like to enjoy my last 400 peacefully, happily on a beach, talking to some other black people about stuff we can relate to. Yo, Peace King. This is selected readings in the month of Black History, February, from Africanthology, a perspective from Black Canadian poets. Boom, boom, boom. Yes, Tondaway McCarthy, the poet, the griot. The moment after I discovered the slur on my car and went inside my apartment, my heart was racing. I was angry, I was scared, and then after I caught my breath, I was angry about being scared. Like when white allies speak to a racially diverse group of listeners using the term us and them, as in, we have to be more aware of our white skin privilege. I was simultaneously encouraged and annoyed when they asked me what they could do about it. Right? Daring to question BLM. We need to be able to ask why. Hive mind and the rise of social media as a breeding ground for reactionary mob mentality is not only hearing in an age of peer pressure for adults and an increase in fear-introduced tyranny. It is also bringing about the slow and painful death of intelligence via the essential exercise of critical thought. Separate and sovereign from the British Crown. I am keenly aware of the fact that I experience an odd mix of dehumanizing exotification and light-skinned privilege. As Reverend King said so eloquently, it's not the violence of the few that scares me, it's the silence of the many. The trouble was that I lacked the strength to speak out against it within my personal circles. How do you grow comfortably telling your closest connection that their deeply held views about a group of people are offensive, especially when their prejudicial views of the people in question are reaffirmed daily by their cultural, religious, and social contexts? Today, I'm strong enough and have the necessary language. I'm not sure that all of them can hear me, although, and that is a source of sadness and frustration for me. The effectiveness of colonialism is so damaging and cynical that we ingest the poison ourselves. We are shrinking in potential and diluting our brilliance. Bam. Imagination turning gray because we refuse to harness the positive surge from the negative rays. Modern day spirituality just ain't rolling out the red carpet for everyone anymore. So we can't experimentally articulate the radical joy of cutting it, the irony of being intimidated by the world's only constant arrogant bastard, the cause of our anger. Bam. Dun, dun, dun. And there we have it. Quote I wrote at the back, we read again, it's not the violence of the few that scares me, it's the silence of the many. This has been Select Readings from Africanthology, Perspectives from Black Canadian Poets. I encourage you to buy this book. Get this book. Read this book and use it in your parenting, your teaching, your classrooms, your social organizations. Pay these people to come and elaborate on what they wrote, and you pay them a fair wage, above a fair wage, a wage worthy of the painstaking time, necessity, and reflection to create this. These are artists of the highest degree, putting their art out where it can cause them misfortune, doing it so the masses can gain strength and power from it in order to feed our seeds the fertilizer of knowledge of self, so that we'll be able to produce generational wealth and share. Bubba Shabazz, the Black Rose Nation, Africanthology. Read to your children. Read to yourself. Books, books, books.